So, slight salt warning here, but I got asked to talk about diversity and writing diversely. And right up at the front, I want to say that forcing diversity is not really a thing, and even if it is a thing, it's not something that's going to destroy your story. This is not going to happen, and that's where some salt comes from. But let's talk about writing diversely a little bit here. Anyways, okay, so looking back on my longest frick video on creating interesting characters, I think like half my points can kind of be boiled down to add diversity. And you see, diversity doesn't just boil down to like the color of your character's skin or their sexuality or their gender or anything like that. It's much bigger, and there's so many facets to it. And even more if you start adding in the element of fantasy. Diverse characters in one story and in your greater body of work, it's really important. For one, we all have a tendency to stay in our comfort zones. We write people a lot like us. When you kind of expand your focus, you allow for people with different backgrounds to exist in your story, and that ends up doing a service to your story and to your readers that kind of want to see themselves reflected in fiction. It just adds more interest and a lot more like reality by challenging defaults. Now, when you're working with diversity, there's some things you should consider. For one, just because you are writing outside of your comfort zone doesn't mean that we throw away the notion that is write what you know, because you should always write what you know. So instead of focusing on what you already know, you need to expand your knowledge. You need to empathize and understand a wider array of people's experiences. This means, especially if you're writing about like real life groups of people, or if your fantasy races have any sort of like coding where they pick up traits from real life people, whether intentionally or not, you need to look beyond your circle of knowledge and listen to voices of different people and different stories. Talk to people, and if not talk to people, at the very least listen to things that they have to say. Like, for example, if you're not gay, it's probably time to sit down and listen to the experiences of people who are gay, and not assume that you know everything just by osmosis and just by kind of like casually knowing gay people in your life. Since I'm always like a proponent of writing scripts and doing prep work, a bonus to that is when you write prep work, you can have people read your work and check your designs and critique them with the personal understanding, so that you don't step in some shaky ground that you don't want to be caught in later. All of this kind of goes hand in hand with Ursula's video on research too, which I'm gonna link to so you can check that out. But you tend to make things that are bland and flat if you don't do your research. If you think you understand something, that's kind of more dangerous than not knowing something, because when you think you understand something, you go into your defaults, you create something very boring. But when you reference and you pull details from real life, it adds such a depth to your work. And even if you don't exactly copy something from real life, you are able to look at it with the perspective of real life experience and really make something 3D and fleshed out. And this works with armor design, and it also works with stories and experiences. Another thing I'd add is when you're adding diversity, remember that even within a group of people, there is diversity of thought, experience, everything. It's no two people are alike just because they grew up with certain circumstances to their life. Everyone's going to react to things differently, and researching the stories of all sorts of people is important, and writing more than one character with a certain trait is important too. When you have a single character of color, a single trans character, or even if we're going fantasy, a single pixie, that character will have a lot on their shoulders. There will be an expectation put upon them to speak for their entire group of people, and you need to be aware that that exists. Whether or not it's intentional or not, it says something. So maybe diversity is a little difficult, it does take effort to write it, and maybe that makes it easy to like faceplant and write something terrible, but that doesn't mean that diversity is at fault. Diversity isn't the only difficult thing you have to write, and those that believe that diversity can cause a work to be bad just because like forced diversity, you need to look at the works that you feel were ruined by diversity, and you need to try and fix them without erasing the diversity, and you'll see that there's so much you can screw up with, and diversity is not at the center of it. And yeah, that's all I really have to say on the matter about it. It's probably a big topic, but I also have more like character stuff to talk about here. Thanks for listening to me on that. What's being drawn here today is from the Save Dad from Fairy RP, and Ursula talked about 2 characters from it. In a previous video, she talked about Dahlia and Raven. In this video, I get to talk about like the main character here and a lot of other characters. There's so many here. So the big tall boy here, who is a human, the dad in the titular Save Dad from Fairy RP. His name is Russel, and he is a father of 4. He's kind of like a stay-at-home dad while his wife Jane, she works her little butt off as like a CEO of sort of like an entertainment company. The two of them kind of met in college. They were both into like theater stuff, and so Russell is really into like fashion, and he's especially into costume design. But now he doesn't really work. He stays at home with the kids, raising all of his hellions. He's got a pair of twins who are like toddlers, and their names are Ethan and Evan. They really like space. They're hyper. They are always up to trouble and keep Russell very busy throughout the day. And in his one arm, the little blonde kid, her name is Gemma. She's like a baby. She's kind of like she's like a year old or so. She's pretty new to the fam, keeping him busy as well. And then the little girl sitting by the mermaid, that is his daughter Lucy, and she is the middle child. She is very quiet and she's cute. And so he's living in the human world, doing his thing, and just being stressed out about caring for a baby and all these kids, and oh my god. He doesn't really leave the house anymore. He's full dad mode all the time. And then one day, a fairy lady by the name of Lady Summer steps out of his fridge. And she is like, "You are coming with me because I need a new husband." And he's very confused and shocked about the woman coming out of his fridge, and is like, "Oh, okay, she is a mentally ill woman who has stumbled into my house. Let's help her." And well, she's not. She's a fairy. She definitely is a fairy. And he quickly realizes that he's in for some trouble. And she's basically like, you're raising 4 children. I have 4 children that need a father in their lives, and I think you do a really good job. And he's like, well, I can't really go to the fairy world with you because I have kids to raise here. And she's like, "Oh, is that a problem?" So she takes Russell's cat, and she turns Russell's cat into another Russell, but he still acts like a cat and he still lounges about. And she's like, "There, he can take care of your children while you raise mine. And when you're done raising my children, then you can come back here." And he's like, "No, I'm not doing any of this." And he's like, "Look, there's probably another human out here that would actually love to go help you." And he tries to look into dating apps for her, and she really doesn't understand how these things work. She's like yelling at the text messages, not sure like how this thing works. What is this magic? She thought humans didn't have magic. Eventually, she is like, "Look, Russell, it'll only be for a month, and my children are going to die if I don't find a husband soon. And it has to be a human one because of reasons. Ursula will get into that." But he eventually is like, "Fine, if it's only for a month, like when the solstice ends, sure, I guess I could stay for a month. You just gotta make sure that my kids are okay." And she's like, no, it's fine. And so she takes him in to the fairy world. And well, the fairy world has a completely different like time span thing going on than the human world. And the actual truth of the matter is that yes, she is going to release him at the solstice, However, the next solstice in the fairy world actually is gonna happen in like a decade. So yeah, he's going to be stuck there for 10 years. And like he goes in and he's like, wait, no, I need to leave right now. And she's like, no, you have to stay. You promised. She keeps like lying to him, because basically what's going to happen in like a few fairy days is that the portals are going to switch. And like the portals currently are in the realm of pestilence where Lady Summer is living, and like in a few days the portals will switch to the Fauna Court, and then he won't be able to go back unless he goes to the Fauna Court to escape. She basically is just like lying to him for like as long as she can, so he is unaware that that he is stuck here forever for quite a bit. And so when he first steps into the Kingdom of Pestilence, because he's a human, he starts getting very, very sick. And he starts, basically he's turning into a pile of bacteria and like other gross tiny little creatures. So he's very sick and he starts dying, and he's like, what is happening to me? I am very sick. And she's like, I don't know. I don't really know much about humans. Like, maybe we should get you a doctor. And they get him like a doctor, and like they help him stay human for a little while longer. And he's like, I need to leave. I don't think I can live here. And she's like, oh, no, it's fine. Let's figure this out. And it turns out in order to keep him from dying, she needs to bind herself to him. And she's like, well, that's good because we need to get married. And it doesn't matter that you're married to a human. That kind of marriage doesn't count here because humans can't merge their hearts. You're basically animals, so don't worry. I'll marry you. You'll not die. It'll all be good. So on his basically deathbed, as he is like slowly dying of being turned into a sick boy, by the Kingdom of Pestilence, she quickly rushes a wedding to happen, and he is married to her. He stops dying, but he also stops he's like becoming less human after that point. He starts becoming more like a fairy lord, kind of more like a nymph, because there's no lords in this world. Yeah. And so while he's here, he starts taking care of the children, and he is very confused about taking care of fairy children at first. So he's got 4 fairy children, and the oldest one is Fallow, and Fallow is from Summer's first marriage, and it's a very sad first marriage. She was married to the king, and because Fallow was a boy, that means that he is the next heir to the throne, because like every time a king has a child, it's very rare that it's going to be a boy. Unfortunately for Summer, their first child was a boy. That means that Fallow must kill the king at some point and then take over the kingdom as the next king. The only way that Fallow can die is if his mother kills him. It's all fairy rules. So the king is like, Summer, you need to kill our first son, and she nopes out of there, and that breaks her heart, and this is why she keeps remarrying people, which is very rare in the fairy world. Either way, her heart's broken. Ursula will get into it. Fallow is basically a grumpy teenager permanently, because like I said in a previous discussion, in order to age as a fairy, you need to hit milestones, and for him to get out of his teenage years, he must kill the king and become a king. So he is very grumpy because he's stuck as a hormonal teenager all the time, and he is always plotting his father's death, grumbling in his room. He refuses to eat his greens because he doesn't really need to eat, but Russel is forced to give him food because his mom is like, Fallow needs food, so make sure he gets food. The other child is from Summer's most recent marriage, why she moved to Pestilence in the first place. It is from a pixie, from a goblin, so it's a little goblin baby named Snot. The goblin's father is the one that cursed poor Ficus. She was mentioned before, Summer's sister. The goblin cursed her. Snot was born. If the curse was to be undone, Snot would probably die. So, yeah, Ficus probably isn't going to get uncursed because Summer loves her little baby Snot. And Snot is always getting poor Russel very sick. Russell is constantly having, like, a bit of a flu, and it sucks. Summer's other two children are the little pixie flying by Fallow's head. She was born in the fungus court. Summer's third husband was a pixie. She likes to cause mischief. She's very cute. She likes tricking Russel because eventually, to keep Russel from trying to run away, Summer exchanges his memories so that he starts believing that all of the memories he had with his first 4 kids are actually with these 4 kids, and that he has always been married to Summer. So Bella likes going along with this. Bella is short for like portabella because she's like a portobello mushroom. She likes going along with this, but like when she realizes it's hurting his feelings, she feels kind of bad. She likes good fun. She doesn't like mean fun. And so she's close with her final sister, Summer's second daughter, which is Lily. And Lily is a mermaid. Her father was a merman. It was a bit of a fling. It didn't last long. Lily is a sweetums. She's very quiet. She likes to sing, and she's very lonely all the time because all of her brothers and sisters walk around where she has to stay in her pond all the time. And when Russel comes, he is really nice to her, and he's like always bringing Portabella over to like hang out with her. Like, go play with your sister. You two would get along. And they make dresses together because he's a costume guy. And Lily just really likes her new dad. Like, she's very skeptical of him because she's seen her mom have so many men in her life. And it's really sad because, like, Lily really starts to like Russel and be like, wow, you are very unlike other dads. And the reason that Russel is unlike other dads is because he is human. And humans and fairies interact. They deal with love in very different ways. So humans are all about physical and affectionate love. Like, the fairies quickly learn that Summer especially quickly learns that humans are like so needy. Like, a fairy marriage, as soon as your hearts are melded together, you are together forever. There's like immediate love bond right there. You don't even have to hang out. You can be apart for hundreds of years and still love each other. Meanwhile, humans are always falling in and out of love. They always need like cuddles and like to hold hands. And Summer is so confused with this by Russel, and Russel likes to cuddle the kids. In Summer's opinion, the only reason you would ever like even touch your child is to like pick them up if they were a baby and move them and maybe give them a bottle. But Russel just likes to like hold the kids in his arms, and it very much confuses her. And she eventually starts to realize that all of this like affection and stuff is starting to turn her children into human. It's humanizing their heartbeats. They're becoming very like human sounding because like fairies have all sorts of different rhythms to their heart. And she gets sort of nervous about all of her kids starting to be human and desiring affection and hugs and kisses. And she likes hugging and kissing them, but I suppose that's for another thing. And so she bans Russel from doing any of that sort of thing because she's like, this is dangerous. If my children become human, they will die in the pestilence kingdom. And do you want that? No. So you are no longer allowed to do anything with them. And this upsets Russel quite a lot, and he gets very bored, and he starts like bothering Summer to like have attention because, you know, he's bored. And like so him and Jane, his wife, they've been having a lot of trouble, and they have a very like loveless kind of marriage. So seeing the same behavior from Summer and the fact that his memories have been switched and he kind of believes that Summer is Jane, he goes to her and finally stands up to himself, and he's like, we don't have what we used to have, and I'm very sad, Jane. And she's like, who's Jane? Why do you keep calling me Jane? And eventually she's like, oh, your wife, right? What do you want? Like, what do you want from me? And he's like, I don't know. I'd like to like go back to work sometimes and have you look after the kids. And she's like, fine, that's fine. We can have some servants look after the children too. And he's like, oh, it was that easy? He's very confused. Eventually, so Russel does start having a job. So like Summer sends him off to the playhouse where he can work on costumes for all of the plays, and that's where he meets Dahlia. And Dahlia is a sweet little trans girl, and she's very happy that he thinks she's a girl because he can't see through glamour, and he doesn't know that like she was a male nymph. So she's very excited with him, and she also loves humans. And like when he goes to handshake her, he's like, oh right, you humans, you fairies don't like that. And she's like, no, this is amazing. And like while he's in the fairy world, and once Summer banishes him from like cuddling, and she never hugs him or anything, his heart starts to become stony and more like a fairy, because like humans need all that affection and love, and he becomes very dull as a person slowly, and just less interesting, and just kind of like sad, well, not sad, just kind of depressed, I guess, where it's very hard to feel anything, and it's just like weeks and weeks of just like no motivation. Like he starts losing his interest in working on the dresses and hanging out with the kids, and everyone's kind of, and the kids are really bummed out about this because they were enjoying their time with their dad, and now their hearts are going all stony and like fairy-ish again. And so Dahlia notices that like he talks about things very weird. Like he'll start talking about like his time with his kids, and none of it adds up, because Russell can't really see through the forest through the trees, but Dahlia's like, why do you keep calling your one son Ethan? What's a space person? Because Ethan and Evan like to dress up as space people, and he's like, oh right, I was just making dresses for them, I guess. He just confuses himself about like what's going on, and she's like, oh no, it looks like your memories have been messed with. And so Russell's like, oh my god, this all makes sense. My memories has been messed with. And he goes and rants to Summer, and he sees a glimpse through the pool and is able to see his family again. He's like, oh my god, they have gotten older. There's like another Russell, and he demands to go home. And Dahlia's like, yeah, you shouldn't do this to him. And I forget why, but Summer feels bad because he sasses her quite a bit. And she's like, well, I hope you know that you leaving means that my children are gonna die, and they get into a big fight. And so Russell ends up going home, and Dahlia leads him there through the fauna court, and he finally gets home, and he kicks the cat out. Meanwhile, Jane has discovered that the fairy world is a thing and has gone looking for him. Yeah, and so Dahlia pretends to be Jane while she's missing, and she does a horrible job at being Jane. And eventually Dahlia learns that Jane was cheating on Russell, because Jane's mistress fella, he comes up and is being all flirty with her, and Dahlia learns what kissing is, and she gets kissed by this guy, and she's like, no, that's for married people and relationship people, don't do that. And she learns that their recent baby might not be Russell's, and Jack, who is the mistress fella, he's like, what are we gonna do, like, if Gemma's mine? And Dahlia's like, Gemma's yours? And so she runs to Russell, and she's like, I think that this man named Jack thinks he owns Gemma and is going to steal her. And Russell eventually pieces out what Dahlia is even talking about, and he eventually receives a letter from Jane, because Jane reaches the Pestilence Court, she reaches Summer's Court. Oh my god, there's so much to this. Yeah, but Jane reaches Summer's Court, maybe Ursula can talk about all this stuff, and sends a letter to Russell talking about how worried she is, and Russell sends a letter back being like, I have figured out what you are up to. I don't want you stuck in the fairy world, and I'm gonna help you, but I don't know if the two of us are going to stay together after this. He wants to work it out for the sake of the kids, but is very upset, and he also kind of likes Dahlia a little bit. So yeah, I love this RP. I really want to do it again. It's very cute. It's a lot of just like hanging out with the cute kids, doing cute things. I think Ursula can talk to you more about like what's going on with Fallow and what goes on with Summer and her handmaiden Cordelia, because apparently both of our fairy RPs have a Cordelia in it. We realized this. We were quite sad to learn. But either way, yeah, it's exciting. Thank you for listening. Thank you for dealing with me being salty about forced diversity. Yeah, I don't know. I have a whole bunch of social medias. You know what I've been working on recently? I've been posting all of these images to Tumblr, but they also get posted to Ursula's Instagram, DeviantArt, and for Affinity. I think there might be more. I don't know. But if you want to see the full image, go ahead and check that out. DeviantArt's usually first because like Ursula updates the other things, and yeah, you know, it's troublesome. I don't know. This is like very ramble. I can't believe I only have like 4 more talks to do. Like there's 8 in total because plus Ursula, but I think I have like 4 more talks with you guys, and then we're done. We're done Inktober. Oh my goodness, it goes so fast. Oh my goodness. Okay, I have to go and work on actually putting things into our Tixtail store because whoopsies, I realize I've been behind on that. Please forgive me. Okay, thank you for watching. I think this is enough rambling for now.